Dr. Sharat Kohli, senior economist, joining us on the broadcast this morning. Sir, another explosive piece of information. There has been a lot of hue and cry over this for the last couple of days, since the last week, since the information was made public. But now, of course, we're getting to know that there is no mention of evidence against Adani. There are 5 counts of the indictment, of which in count number 1 and count number 5, that is conspiracy to violate the FCPA and conspiracy to obstruct justice, has no mention of Gautam Adani, Sagar Adani or Vineet Jaain. So do you think this was then a larger conspiracy to malign the Adani group, because they have suffered losses amounting to $55 billion US? They've also lost some key deals. Kenya energy deal is one of them.
Good morning, Pia, and good morning to the viewers of Newsx. I'm glad, because Newsx was amongst the first channels to state very categorically that this is coming out of a larger conspiracy, and a lot of conspiracy theories were spelled out by me and other panelists and Newsx as such. And the stand is now vindicated, because Department of Justice in the United States has very, very clearly said that there is no evidence of bribe being paid. So this is from day one, I was personally convinced this is an agenda against the country. This is an agenda against India's growth story. This is the heartburn which a lot of groups around the world have for the Indian progress, for the Indian GDP, for India becoming amongst the top 4 or 5 economies on its way to become the 3rd largest economy. So obviously it's causing a lot of heartburns around the world. There is a propaganda going on across the world. I would suggest that, we should file a bribery case against let's launch a case against George Soros in a court in India. This is something like that. And when the summons were issued, very important point. There is a Hague Convention of 1965. This convention says that you cannot issue summons to an individual of another country without going through the diplomatic protocol. There is a protocol prescribed there. Also, between India and the United States, there is a mutual legal assistance treaty. So I think the summons were also breaching the MLA, called Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, by issuing summons to an individual who is based in another country without following the diplomatic protocol. So I think the very fact that they breached the treaty and the Hague Convention agreement in 1965, proves the fact that this is a clear case of an agenda, a propaganda being run against the country to target India's growth, although the charges which are levied for bribery, I'm sure the relevant states in India, they may like to investigate with the state electricity board if there was any bungling done or there was any bribe paid. But for now, it is very clear, and I'm so glad that Department of Justice has ruled now. But Newsx from day one was very, very clear that this is absolutely part of. I think this is George Soros. This is the Democrats who, while transitioning power to the Republicans, because in New York, Mr. Trump did not win, and it was the Democrats who were in power in New York. So the Federal Court of New York is where this case was filed, and that's where these allegations came from. So I think this is very clear. There is a George Soros background. There is a propaganda against India. There is a Canada angle to this as well. So I think the people who believe in country's growth story, Pia, should be happy today.
Sir, you've spoken about the Canada angle as well, and what's interesting is that those people who have been named are from Azure Power and the CDPQ, that is a Canadian institutional investor and Azure Power's largest shareholder. Do you think then this is a conspiracy to halt India's growth story?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an open secret on what's going on, what Canada is trying to do with India. Mr. Trudeau, he is literally running a campaign against India for the sake of petty power that he wants to be in, although I'm not sure he's going to win. He's definitely going to lose there. So I think the Canadian pension funds were also investors, and the Canadian pension funds are regulated by the government of Canada. So it's hardly surprising that the charges originated and emanated from Canada, and they were passed on to the federal courts in New York. So I think this is very, very clear. I think the fallen pieces of puzzle are now joining together. The dots can be joined, and I'm sure the remaining charges here would also stand to be revoked, because they do not stand any testimonials. They are not based on facts. There is no evidence to support that. It's all a cock and bull story which has been cooked out of thin air, Pia.